All right, folks. Thank you so much to everyone for coming out here tonight to Freeport Community Services Center to join us in a very exciting night for the Planning Board. My name is Sam Kapala. I'm the chair of the Planning Board, and for as long as I've been on the board, we've been looking forward to the start of this process of updating our comprehensive plan. We've been talking about it for years. We're working on a comprehensive plan that's from 2011, so at this point it is, a little long in the tooth, I think, and it's time for an update. So we're very, very excited to be getting underway, and even more excited to see so many of you out here in the room tonight. Tonight is about gathering some data and visioning. It is the first of 4 public workshops, so tell your friends and family members and anyone you know who wasn't able to make it out tonight. We hope that we can get even more people here as this comprehensive planning process keeps moving forward. So I think there's lots of good work to be done. I would ask if all the members of the planning board who are here, which I think is pretty much all the members of the planning board, if those of you could just raise your hands, and I just thanks to all the members of the board in advance for all the hard work. I know a lot goes into this, so I just want to acknowledge that. Thanks also to our town staff, Caroline Pelletier and Cecilia Smith, who are here as well and helping to provide guidance for this process. And then, last but not least, many thanks to North Star Planning, who are going to lead us tonight. We have Ben Smith from North Star, who's here. We have Jamel and Charles, who are also here tonight, and they are doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this process. So it's our voices and our vision that will get incorporated into this plan, but they are the ones who are putting our thoughts and ideas into concrete form that we can use to guide the next decade in Freeport. So again, really excited to be here tonight. Thank you all so much for being here with us. And without further ado, I'm going to welcome Jamel Torres, who's going to start talking us through the first part.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. Like Sam said, I'm Jamel Torres. I work for North Star Planning. We are the lead consultant team for the Comprehensive Plan Project. And we're going to have a little bit of a presentation, and then we'll jump into some breakout groups a little later this evening. So just a quick overview of the presentation. Thanks for the great introduction, Sam. We'll also talk about the role of a comprehensive plan for a community. We'll talk about what future Freeport is. I'm sure you've seen some of the stickers and other things floating around town. Then we're going to really jump into the meat of the presentation this evening with what we've learned from the inventory work that we've done over the past 6 months with the planning board and town staff. As you all know, or you may not know, there's a visioning survey currently online and in paper format to help inform the plan as well. The survey's currently live, but we took a snapshot of the results last week, so we'll jump into some of those results as well. Then there'll be time, like 15 minutes, we're thinking, for questions and discussion. We're going to ask that we hold the questions until the end of the presentation, just so we can keep it going, and then we'll talk about next steps for the project. So first, just so we're all on the same page this evening, just want to talk about what the role of a comprehensive plan is for a community. It is a broad, high-level guidance document. It is not a regulatory document, but it's a guidance document that the town staff, boards, the planning board, council can lean on for making future decisions. It helps to identify community priorities, presenting different options for different scenarios in the future. And it provides a common framework that everybody can work off of together when making future decisions for the community. What it doesn't do is that it's not going to be the last plan in Freeport. There will be other planning efforts. Sometimes a strategy or a goal or a policy in the comprehensive plan is to do other smaller plans, but it's definitely not going to be the last plan that Freeport does. It does not assume new opportunities or challenges won't arise in Freeport. And again, it's a touchstone to get guidance from. It's not a regulatory document, but it helps provide a common framework for you all. So Future Freeport, you may see the logo all around tonight and throughout town. It is the name of the Comprehensive Plan Update Project, so it's the marketing effort for the project. The schedule, it kicked off in late 2023 with the planning board, and the plan is to have the first draft plan ready for public review in early 2025. And the plan will include existing conditions, a lot of what we're going to share with you all tonight, a vision statement, future land use plan for future development in town, and then finally goals, policies, strategies, and an implementation strategy or implementation rubric to help move the plan forward and make decisions in the future. It's a large team effort, as Sam was saying. In the town of Freeport, it is the town staff, the planning board, the council, and other boards and committees contributing to the process. The consultant team is being led by us, North Star Planning. We're also working with Aceto Landscape Architects, Levine Planning Strategies, and FB Environmental. So it really makes up a pretty good, large, comprehensive team. And then you all, the community, through surveys, public workshops. There will be several more this fall. Email newsletters, some direct mailings, pop-up events and tabling events where you'll see folks this summer talking about the planning effort. And then there is a project website, futurefreeport.com, that's live, and it contains the survey. So some of you all may have been there already, but please continue to check it for project updates in the future. So a quick timeline. So it's 4 tasks. It's a very large planning effort. Task 1 is inventory and analysis. So a lot of the work we're going to share tonight came from that task, and that started in December, like I said earlier, through May of this year. Task 2 is a lot of vision and values, where we will try to get community input and involve the community with workshops like this, the survey, some visions and value statements, and finally culminating with a future land use workshop that will occur in November. Task 3 is an implementation plan. So the plan that helps to implement and move the plan forward in the future. It includes some goals, policies, strategies, plan framework, and some specific performance measures to keep track. And that's scheduled to kick off in August through the end of the year. And then the last task is actually plan drafting and adoption. So the fun part, where we update all of the inventory chapters based on public feedback. We draft the plan and work with the state on their review process. And then finally, it ends with council review and adoption. And that's slated to occur about 11 months from now in May of 2025. So at this point, I'm going to pass it along to Charles. He's going to take us through some of the data highlights and visioning survey results.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Charles with North Star Planning. So a big part of the comp plan is looking at a lot of data coming from requirements from the state, what is required for a comprehensive plan, and others that we found kind of supplement what we're looking to learn about Freeport, where we've been over the last 30 to 40 years, and more recently what has happened since the last comprehensive plan. There are a variety of topics in which the North Star Planning Board and the community will provide feedback on through inventory chapters. These are 12 of them, ranging from agriculture and forestry, looking at the natural resources of the town, and then diving into some of the housing, economy, and demographic data. And these are all presented with comparisons with different communities, neighboring communities, Cumberland County, and then the state of Maine as a whole. So we really use this data to understand where Freeport is, where Freeport has been, so we can lay the framework to move forward. One thing I do want to note at this point, I'm going to be sharing a lot of data from the state, from the US Census, the American Community Survey. All of these data sources aren't 100% accurate. They're very reliable data sources. They provide a really great framework to understand the trends of economy, of housing, demographics in the town. Some of them might be inconsistent with each other depending on the sources. Some use estimates. Some try to grab old building permit data from the town. So what we're really looking at here is what are the trends that kind of are showing us the direction of Freeport in terms of, for example, population growth, median income, home values, and housing stock. So we're going to do a little overview. One of the things in the draft, as I mentioned before, are the inventory chapters, and we do a deep dive on all of these. But what we want to do for tonight as part of the visioning survey is to look at the highlights of each section. So this was on the board before, the Mentimeter exercises, and we have sheets in front of you. You can use the QR code. We had some printouts if you want to follow along. This allows us to ask questions, and then you can vote as you go. This is my first time using it, so I also have it pulled up. I won't vote as to skew the data, but we're going to be going through some of these questions to kind of gauge where the community thinks about Freeport. So some of these questions are more experiential based. What are your favorite places in town? And some of them are kind of where we think, we want to know what you think about Freeport in terms of the numbers. So just follow along. It updates live, and it'll be a cool little exercise. So the first question to ask is, what is the population of Freeport? Option 1 is 7,529. The second option is 8,737. The third option is 9,415. Then 10,200, 11,300. Yes, if you need any paper copies to answer, if you don't have your phone, you don't have service, you're worried about data usage, Caroline has pens and papers in the back. Don't look at the purple sheet.
It's funny because the bar is purple.
Yeah, it works out. Oh, it shows you how many. Cool. I like this. I want Caroline to answer.
What do you think?
All right, if anyone would like a paper copy of this, please raise your hand. If not, we will continue forward. Some of you may say, Charles, the fact sheet that you handed us has that in the top left corner. We kind of did that by design. The population is 8,737. But I did want to direct you, if you did get this number from the inventory fact sheet, we have a lot more data kind of squished onto that page. So as you're walking around looking at our stations after this, you can use that inventory fact sheet as kind of a guidance. So we're going to go on to the next question. And this is more of an open-ended question. In 10 years, Freeport's population will ... Skip ahead. And make sure if you're on your phone, it just said skip ahead. Learning with you. Make sure if you're using it on your phone, you hit submit. Also just learned that. It's important to know what you're doing. Everyone's optimistic. That's good. So just looking at this, get your final votes in, follow along on paper. There seems to be general consensus that there is little to significant growth, with obviously most of you in the middle. One person coming out remain the same as I speak that. But one thing we want to show you, and this is kind of the data component I was telling you about, is looking at the population. So according to the U.S. Census, as of 2020, the population of Freeport was just over 8,300 or 8,700. But what we can also show here, and it might be a little bit hard to see, is two projected growth. So one from the Maine State Economist, which is showing steady growth, slightly less than what we've seen in the last decade, between 2020 and 2040. And then a historic growth projection, which you can see here in gray, which shows a continued trend just over 10,000. So all the metrics that we're using, looking at population based on previous data or the state's projections, show at least some sort of growth. This one is showing, the state is saying just over 9,000, while historic growth is under 10,000, and these can both be considered conservative. Looking over at the side table, we have the population growth of Freeport, the changes in population of the last 12 years, so this is 2010 to 2021, showing that there's a large increase in population of Freeport residents under the age of 5 and an increase over 65 with smaller decreases in between. So this is really indicative of the increase in families, more kids being born here, people raising their families here, and people aging in place. And with the median age at 47.2, this is kind of the picture we're looking at in terms of demographics. So population growth on the left with an aging population and a lot new kids coming to the community. On demographics, the median income has increased between 2010 and 2021. And this increase is pretty consistent with the neighboring towns. Some have not had as much, so look at Yarmouth, but other communities like Pownell and Cumberland have very similar median income growth. So moving into some of the housing questions, so going back into Menti, is just a general question, a poll. No data is being collected, but what housing type do you live in? All the way to the left, we have owner-occupied single-family, owner-occupied condo, townhouse, multifamily would be in there, renting a single-family home, renting an apartment, or other. Okay, we only had 5 options. So I'll keep moving on because this is very similar to the data I have here. So we have most people in this room have selected owner-occupied single-family housing, and the data also reflects that. So looking at the housing types in Freeport, over 3/4, 77.8%, are single-family homes, and we'll kind of dive back into this later when we talk about land use, with only 23% being more than 2 units. When then we break it down by owner-occupied and renter-occupied, 80% of the houses are owner-occupied with only 20% of the population rented. Again, this data is coming from the census, generally showing a trend. This has been consistent in multiple communities around that single-family homes are predominant. When it comes to the median home value, Freeport, looking at the neighboring towns of Yarmouth, Pownell, Brunswick, and Durham, Freeport is the second highest in median home value as of 2022 at $710,000. But that trend has seen growth. That growth is seen all over the state, all over the country. It's a national trend of home values increasing over the last 5 years. I don't think this is too much of a surprise to anyone. But when it comes to affordability, we look at Freeport in the context of Cumberland County and the state of Maine. Freeport is, on average, more unaffordable compared. So the graph to the right is showing the households unable to afford median income. So relative to the median home value and the median income in terms of how affordable Freeport is. By 2023, 80% of the homes would be unaffordable to median income. So I'll just leave this up for a second. Moving on to more of an economy focus, we're talking about commuting with this question. So it's simple as where do you work? This is important because we can look at the data that the state provides us and some federal census data that shows where people are commuting to, where people work. All right, so I think we're usually around 43 to 45 respondents. One thing to know is that the work from home is really a recent trend we're seeing. So a lot of the data we're showing hasn't caught up with the trend following the pandemic of people moving to a hybrid work format, complete remote. So a lot of the changing workscape isn't captured in the census data, but I think this is really telling that we have a lot of people working in Freeport, but there's still a majority of people in the room commuting outside of Freeport. And at least to that point, the data supports this. At the right, we have a graph showing, it's a little bit confusing. So the arrow, the darker green arrow, is showing people who work in Freeport but live outside of Freeport, meaning the amount of people commuting to Freeport to work. And the lightest green arrow on the right is showing people who live in Freeport but have to commute to work outside of Freeport. with the arrow in the middle of 756 people, citing people who live and work in Freeport. This is based off of census data showing people where they're working. And this, again, as I said, doesn't really capture remote work yet. I think there's a lot of new surveys and studies coming out from the state about the impact of hybrid and remote work. But generally, this is data that has stayed consistent with Freeport. Most Freeport residents commute outside. The inventory chapter that we will be sharing later on has a complete breakdown, with most people commuting to Portland, Augusta, and kind of that's in the greater Portland area. Looking at the types of jobs, we have a quick bullet there at the end showing that retail and transportation warehousing jobs are the top jobs in Freeport, not of Freeport residents. So now we're going to move from the economy, talking about public recreation. So this question is asking, what is your favorite public outdoor space in Freeport? Someone was very quick to that one. I'll give a little vote. I'm participating. I am. Put that in a Wolf's Neck State Park. Yeah, for this purposes, it's close. It's okay. Ooh, 50. Have one more? Oh, close. So when we talk about the inventory chapters, we look at the total recreation, public space, conserved land, state properties, town properties, and then private facilities to kind of paint a picture of what the natural resources and recreation look like in Freeport. Just to run through these numbers in case you can't read it, Freeport has more than 2,000 acres of open space, parks, things like that, over 35 miles of hiking trails managed by a variety of organizations. 14% of Freeport's total land area, so not counting water, is conserved, so 14% conserved, with one state park, we're all familiar with that, a variety of private and public recreational facilities, sports fields, parks, and then town wharves and public coastal access. I think there's not, for a lot of the coastal communities, sometimes they take that as granted, but when we work with inland communities, we really get to see the value of having a working waterfront and access to the ocean. And with that, marine resources, we take a really deeper dive into the impacts of commercial and recreational marine uses. So we look at the number of wharves. Freeport has 6 with over 350 moorings. According to the state licensing data, we have 194 fishing licenses. Just under 2/3 of them are for commercial. The remaining are recreational. Just for some environmental data here, there's been a 64% decline in soft-shell clam harvest, 4,000% increase in oyster harvest since 2014, and lobster harvesting has remained stable. One thing to note here, and it's discussed in further detail in the chapter, is the eelgrass coverage has declined from 1,900 acres in 2010 to only 2.7 acres in 2022. And I had referenced this earlier as part of looking at single-family homes, but we take a really deep dive into the existing land use as part of the inventory chapters that leads to future land use planning. So what types of zoning, ordinances, kind of all falls within this chapter. With total of just under 50 square miles of land in the town, 35 of it's land, 11 point of it is coastal waters. You can see the large green. The map is hard to see, but they are all posted on the website, futurefreeport.com, www.futurefreeport.com. 76% of the town is zoned rural residential, which kind of reflects some of the housing data in the town, saying that over 3/4 of the town's housing stock is single family. We see that reflected in the zoning of rural residential. And one thing to note, 3% of Freeport is zoned for the village. So when we think about the village core, that's kind of what we mean by the multiple villages in the town. So we have been we have outside, and Jamel had talked about it, is a large visioning survey process. This is a huge step in trying to get everyone in the community to give feedback on a variety of different topics. If you haven't filled it out yet, you can access it online. There's a QR code and a link and a business card out in the lobby area, and you can fill out a paper form in Town Hall or here and put in a little box. But we took the initial round of submissions and looked at the answers to these, and we generated some word clouds, did initial round of analysis. So this is a word cloud for the question of asking, what is the best thing about living in Freeport? So you can see community, town, access, outdoor, downtown are some of the bigger things that we've seen come up in a lot of those topics. When it came to what is your favorite public outdoor space in Freeport, which is similar to what we voted on here, is Winslow Memorial Park and Wolf's Neck State Park were the top answers. So people really cared about these as valuable public outdoor spaces in Freeport, with Tidebrook Preserve, Wolf Neck's Farm, I guess for the purpose of your question earlier, they're separate in the survey, and then Ella Bean Campus and Hedgehog Mountain. When we talked about what are the most significant issues or challenges related to housing in Freeport, the three most common were affordability, lacking of available housing, and not enough housing in the downtown area. When we asked the question, in the next 10 years, what kind of population change do you want to see in Freeport? Reflecting a lot of our projections and the data projections, we saw an increase, families, young, growth, diversity, change, steady. A lot of these words of these are the most common things related to population growth. When we talk about what would make Freeport a better place, a lot of the responses that we saw were about more restaurants, housing, activities, community events, improving traffic, pedestrian safety, flow of traffic in the downtown area, and making it safer to bike around town, which relates a lot to the pedestrian friendliness of how we're creating a streetscape. Do you want me to continue with the what's next? For the what's next, in terms of this is the first of 4 workshops for the Freeport Comprehensive Plan. We're really looking to get a vision throughout this, see where the town is, where the community aligns on where to go. So as part of this visioning outreach, we're going to be doing some summer pop-up events and tabling throughout the town with community members, with the planning board. And then in the fall, we're going to move into topic listening sessions, housing, environment, and then finally the future land use workshop. So these are for September, October, and November, and we'll be posting on the website, the town website, the Freeport Comprehensive Plan website, for a lot of these updates as we lock in these events. So similar to this, where we're asking more visioning, general questions about where the town is going, we're going to be diving into these deeper topics. So again, www.futurefreeport.com. Here we'll be posting the chapters once they're in a first draft form. We just uploaded the maps that we'll be using as part of this process. There's a way to sign up to our mailing list, get resources, news, and reach out to town staff and North Star Planning if you have any questions or concerns. And also, it's a good way to take the vision survey. So now we're going to move into a Q&A session before we break out into our topic areas. I think Jamel and Ben are going to join me up here to answer any initial questions about the presentation, about the process. Yeah. Oh, yes. So just raise your hand and he will bring a mic to you.
Hi,
Yeah, if you can introduce yourself too.
my name is Katrina Van Brew. I've been in Freeport about 30 years. My question is, we've been having a lot of visioning workshops and such like for the last couple of years. How does your thing relate to that? Is this a next step in that process, or it sounds almost like you're starting from scratch again?
You want to take this? I'll let you.
Hi, thank you. Ben Smith from North Star. We do know that we're building on a lot of good planning work that's been happening in the community over the years, and I think the downtown vision plan was a very large effort, it was a very recent effort. So we've been taking a close look at the results from that planning work. I think one of the key differences is that was very geographically focused. It was focused on Freeport's downtown, Freeport's village area. And an important distinction with this effort is that it's really looking at the entire community. So I think that we're going to build and we're going to use a lot of that good public input that is not that old. But we do need to take a little bit broader of a look. I think that a lot of the topics that got discussed as part of the downtown visioning were some of the same kinds of things, but geographically, the scope is different. And I think you heard Charles talking about some of the topics that are going to be covered in this planning effort that wouldn't be covered in a smaller area plan like that.
My name is Elisa Lombard, and I've also been in Freeport for about 30 years. And I'm wondering, it was mentioned something about presenting to the state. What does that involve, and like who will you be meeting with?
Yeah. So comprehensive plans, not to get into the state planning jargon, are required documents as part of the Growth Management Act in Maine. So in that statute, there's a list of 12 topics that are required for each community to have as part of their comprehensive plan. There's a state office, basically a state planning office, that reviews every town's comprehensive plan for consistency with the state statute. So our goal as the consultants and working with the community is to make sure that we deliver to the state and for the town a comprehensive plan that's consistent with state law and approved by the state. Having a comp plan is really important for a variety of reasons. It's something for the city council, planning board to rely on when making policy decisions, but when also talking about planning initiatives in the future. So having one that is adopted by the town, approved by the state, allows for more cohesive planning and future growth.
And a quick add to that is that even though there is a state framework and they do review it, they provide the rules for big planning projects like this. I think efforts like this, the survey and the work we're doing to reach out to the community is essential to make sure that the recommendations in the plan reflect what's important to the community, the challenges that the community is facing, so that this really is going to be Freeport's plan and not the state's plan for Freeport. So that's an important distinction to make, I think, keeping in mind that there is a program, there's a set of rules that we use when we work with communities like Freeport.
I think we had a question up front, yeah.
Yeah, hi, Chalmers Hardenberg. I have a very jaundiced view of the comp plan based on comments that I've heard in the last year about the 2011 comp plan. Oh, we said X is going to happen in 2011, and it didn't happen. My question is, what kind of enforcement mechanism exists that we as citizens can make sure that the town council or the planning board actually adheres to or doesn't adhere to what is in the comp plan?
Thank you. Good question. I think the most important thing for a comprehensive planning effort is to make measurable implementation strategies. That way, whether it's the current town staff or future town staff or future boards in the community can refer to the implementation rubric and just follow it through, follow up on it throughout the next 10 years. Some plans are pretty broad and provide some great goals or strategies, but they don't have actual measurable strategies. So I think that's a really important part for a comprehensive planning effort, is to make sure it's implementable. Anybody else?
Yeah, oh.
So I've got a question about the difference. Excellent question that she asked, because it gave good context to this. But I think I've heard about another plan, comprehensive type of thing, looking at the climate change issues. Is
Yeah.
this different than that one?
Again, it's a similar thing. So the downtown
different.
plan, the climate change, they're both two plans that took a deep dive into 2 specific topics. Our intention is to utilize that plan, not throw it away, and incorporate it into the new comp plan to make sure that that work, that outreach, because when people are more focused on that, you get different responses. People are really dialed in to one topic, whether it's downtown climate. But those are the 2 plans that are really recent, and we don't want to lose those, so they're going to be incorporated into the comp plan. They're still their own standalone plans with different metrics, but the comp plan will make reference to them, encourage the future, as Jamel mentioned, encourage future planning boards, councils, community committees to utilize those and make sure that they're part of future planning and they're not just like a fragment of the past.
So if somebody has been a little out of the weather for a little while, and they didn't get a chance to put in input into that climate change thing, will we have another option to do that with this one?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
We're not going to be going back and updating those plans. Those have been approved and adopted. But as part of the natural resources chapter, even climate impacts, there's a lot of intersectionality with climate, downtown revitalization, economy, housing. So all feedback we'll receive, go through, and document it accordingly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Eric Sofin. Looking at the topics in the plan, one area I didn't notice really covered was sort of governance and civic engagement. I was wondering if that's could be part of the planning process, or if it's just not a standard one in Maine. I'd imagine things like Freeport has independent water and sewer boards, which is a little weird. Or we don't have a town newspaper. Things like that might show up in there.
Yeah, there's some elements of that aren't included, like the town newspaper. We don't make note of that, but there's a public facilities section specifically talking about fire departments, police department, the capacity. So we talk about sewer, both how water is serviced, how sewer is serviced in the town. And then while we're doing the implementation measures, we also connect that to town offices, town bodies, individual positions, working with planning board committees. So it's interwoven throughout, but there are some specific sections that speak to public facilities capacity, fiscal capacity of the town, and kind of in that realm, nothing specifically saying like, we don't have enough post office. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah. The other thing I'll add real quick is part of what's going to make Freeport's plan Freeport's is going beyond those state-required topics. Like, all of those topics are basically a book report that has to be done on each topic. And it's a lot of data. And I think part of what we're starting to do tonight is to share some of that data. That's like half of the information we need. The other half of the information is from people in the room and from the surveys. What does that data mean? The example we talked about in the office was 14% of Freeport's land area is conserved. That's a fact, but it's going to be up to the people in Freeport to tell us if that's enough or if it's way too much, or what does that mean? So I think that kind of information, as well as topics like energy, climate change, civic engagement, these are not on any state checklist, but are more and more becoming part of every town's planning efforts going forward. So we'll certainly be taking a look at those kinds of things as well.
Sort of a two-part question. The first is with respect to climate change, all of us may or may not actually express an opinion or make a request that be considered. I assume you will reach out to facts that are there nationally and other projections and not be constrained just what you hear from us.
Yeah.
Second part is, it's my understanding that citizen boards in town will be submitting thoughts and ideas to this process as well. For example, the Freeport Sustainability Advisory Board now has up to the town council the consideration of a climate action plan. How will you incorporate that into this process and bring it back to people that can affect how they then participate as well.
Yeah. So to your first part, again, similar to the climate action plan, we're using a lot of previous planning data, previous facts that the town has gotten through different studies and information about, stream health, pond health, coastal marine stability. We showed eelgrass data. So we're using a lot of state Department of Environmental Protection, inland waters and fisheries, that data throughout to paint a broader picture. And again, relying on the climate change, the climate plan that informs a lot of the policies and strategies that we hear. And kind of dovetailing off of that to the second part of your question, the planning board has played an important role already. They're all here tonight supporting. They'll be running the stations after this. And we've also presented the inventory chapters to the planning board. When it comes to larger feedback from community members, community action plans, action committees, we encourage those groups to review the chapters, submit feedback, whether it's through a committee, through the town council. Everyone who lives in Freeport should, and we really would like to get everyone's opinion for whether if you're a member of that board, a member of a committee, a member of a citizen group, and kind of share your thoughts based on that. You have anything to add? Yeah.
Just one more thing to add as well is that we'll be doing climate connections for each inventory chapter. So with help from town staff, we're going to draw some of the highlights or important pieces from the climate action plan and just talk about or summarize how they are connected to the economy, transportation, natural resources. So we're really hoping to incorporate a lot of that good work into this as well.
Hi, George Casey here. Question, you kind of touched on the issue of benchmarking. That how do you do that? You're planning, for the next, 10, 20 years. You know that the population is going to be 10 and over that period, maybe maximum 15, I don't know, something like that. How do you benchmark where we are in terms of, hiking trails per capita, open space per capita, mix of land uses? How do you bring that in to look at, where we stand in those to highlight where we might be in great shape or in bad shape?
I think the first part of, or the main part of the question is related to how do you compare Freeport with regional standards or national standards, or how do you compare Freeport with neighboring communities in some of these aspects? For some information, I'll go back to conservation land. There is no national benchmark. There is a state program that has a goal of 30% of the state's overall land to be conserved by 2030. That might be a place to start in looking at that as far as Freeport goes. But I think a lot of the benchmarking is going to be based on what we hear from folks about how they are experiencing different parts of Freeport. So, for example, if we get a lot of feedback that there's not enough trails or there's not enough conservation land, there will be more and stronger recommendations in the plan to pay more attention to that. If there are things like, for example, regional bus service, I know that there are some benchmarks that transit organizations use when determining level of service and how many round trips they offer per day, for example. So thinking about the land use implications of that, if the community is talking about the need for more regular bus service or other kinds of connections to the transportation network, what are the connections to land use? So at the heart of it, the comprehensive plan is a land use plan. It is, we didn't include a graphic, sometimes we do, where the comprehensive plan is really the master plan for the community. It's very high level, broad goals. Other planning efforts like the Downtown Vision Plan or the Climate Plan have pieces that are much more specific and much more closer to the topics that they're covering. So the comprehensive plan is going to be a mix of specific recommendations It's also going to include some broader policy objectives that will help make the plan relevant over time. So 3 years, 5 years, 8 years from now, 10 years from now, hopefully, future councils, future planning boards will be able to go back and say, this is what the community told us was important back in 2024, and what have we done to make progress on those things since then? So there was an earlier question about implementation, and it's really gonna, we're gonna do everything we can. One of our instructions was to focus on implementation, and focus on implementation from the standpoint of being able to take actions and recommendations that might include more detailed studies or planning in certain topics, but some very specific things would be a great first step here. So the idea of including those things, but leaving some room for people to make progress based on opportunities that come up is also going to be important. So there may be a time a few years down the road where a transportation issue or an infrastructure issue takes the forefront, and you should be able to go back to the comprehensive plan and say, you know, did we think about that, and did we talk about what we should do when this is an issue? So hopefully that gets to the spirit of what you were asking there about benchmarking.
Maddie, did we have any questions online? Are there any final questions in the room? Great. So what we'll do now is going into our visioning activity station. So you may have noticed as you walked in, there's 4 maps outside with questions on it and little sticky notes. Definitely answer the question, where's your favorite place? Where's your favorite outdoor place? I don't remember the other 2 questions off the top of my head. I don't want to say it wrong. They're color-coded. There's Post-it notes out there, too, if you want to add a little thought. Put your Post-it note on the side. And inside the room, we have 4 easels laid out across with different questions, similar to the survey question online. So you can write on the notepad itself. And then for those joining remote, we have some mapping questions, and Mehdi will be running the online questions. So North Star will be floating around. We have the members of the planning board stationed around the room, I believe, and they will help answer any questions, help facilitate anything you have. So with that,
Maybe 30 minutes, and then we'll report.
yes. So we're going to be doing that for about 30 minutes until around 7:30, until we're going to bring it back in and do one final send-off and goodbye. Again, futurefreeport.com is the website, and take the survey if you haven't. We have some outside. So.
Not necessarily this council, but maybe on the previous one. And you, so I called them because I had the line laid out.
All right, so I think we're going to start off with what is the best thing about living in Freeport. Sorry about that.
A couple of things that stand out are sense of community. Someone was felt very strongly, Bow Street Market is the best thing about living in Freeport. Great schools, Main Street in the winter. Harrisseekit Harbor, Forest and Waters, open space, community, programs, walking community, lots of public open space and trails. Someone wrote on the side here, recognizable, walkable, downtown with sidewalks, lots of room for improvement. Yes. I knew who wrote it, I wasn't going to tell. We have another Bow Street Market, community spaces, meeting house arts, and people. A couple of people, 2 or 3, have written the people in the community. Am I good? Thank you.
You know, when you had the word cloud up there of the things about Freeport, I was looking at what was in the tiny writing. And I thought it was like friendly was tiny and community was really small. So this was about housing, and there's sort of a lot of similarity in a lot of the comments, which all talk about more housing downtown and less housing elsewhere. And so not enough smaller homes and apartments and lot sizes to create affordable housing. Not enough large lots there's large minimum lot sizes for new developments in areas that were historically more dense. So saying we've made ourselves very rarefied. Not enough affordable housing, walking distance to downtown, lack of affordable starter houses. Large housing projects are allowed away from the downtown core. Again, sort of saying we wish they were allowed in the downtown core. Lack of workforce housing, need more housing downtown, smart growth, desperately need more affordable housing. And then this one, what strategies have worked elsewhere and what hasn't? And I'm involved in the housing task force in this town as well, and that's a lot of what we've been paying attention to is the strategies that are working elsewhere.
This one is the next 10 years. What kind of population change do you hope to see in Freeport? Diversity, population change, multi-generational, no sprawl, more growth, walkable, bikeable areas, workforce housing, high on depot. High number on depot.
High number of units. People, not cars.
Oh, okay. And here, a focus on year-round residents. Manage parking. Do not give up too much parking. Steady growth in dense areas. There's 5 check marks on that. Families. More Freeporters spending more time in the downtown.
This board is, what is one thing that would make Freeport a better place? And I think a lot of the themes that we've seen elsewhere resonate here as well. A lot about more local shops and businesses. Restaurants show up many, many times, and a lot of those comments have +1 or +2 on them. In addition, a couple times we have public transportation, increased routes for trains and more breeze bus routes to expand public transit options out into and out of Freeport. Activities show up a couple times, concerts and activities for kids. I see one over this comment includes a suggestion to add play equipment in the downtown area, which I think is, as the parent of a couple young kids, at least one of whom is still here, hopefully. There he is. I'm sure he would appreciate that. And yeah, I think again, restaurants and a lot of this goes to just wanting to see a more vibrant downtown with more people living and working and playing in our downtown. We have, I guess I'm the only one left up here. We have some more, have a couple more boards.
I can hold it if you want.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks, Jamel. So I think this is a good visual representation of just how many wonderful outdoor places we have in Freeport. I am not going to risk guessing where all of these are, but I think, all right, I am gonna risk. So we have Winslow, we have Sales Field, we've got Wolf's Neck, both the farm and the state park, we've got Tide Brook, and we have Pettingill, and we have so many wonderful places to hang out outside. That's just the ones that are on the coast, going inland, Hedgehog, we have Florida Lake. I honestly don't know what that is. That in the trees right there, maybe? In the, yeah. So anyway, broad diversity of places in town to hang out outside in public places, and I think that is certainly one of my favorite parts about living here, and something that I really hope we can protect over the coming years and decades. So, favorite spot downtown. Again, pretty good variety of places, given how much of our downtown is just parking lots. You can see the rest of it is pretty well covered in stars. Bow Street Market definitely gets a lot of love. The library gets a lot of love. L.L. Bean, and then it's really hard to decipher, exactly. Meeting House Arts, okay, Meeting House Arts. The Freeport, where we are right now, community service, Freeport Community Services and the community center here. What is, oh, that's what this is. And then it looks like at least one person put a star on the Amtrak station, which I think is cool too, so. Oh, it's a skate park, okay, well, it's both, because I would have started the Amtrak station if I had made my way over to that board, so.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Jamel. It's a team effort. Where does the community gather? It seems like we like to gather in all the same beautiful places that we love. If somebody would please invite me to the next gathering on Bustons, I'll be there. That would be fun. And yeah, I think there are lots of gathering places now, but I would love to see increased community hubs as we sort of expand out of the downtown core, and this is speaking for me personally, but hopefully there's other support as well for this, is just trying to connect the downtown out to these hubs that are further from downtown, so that we can all travel around safely and enjoy the whole town. Is there one more, Jamel, or is that it? There's one more. All right, and are there places in town you avoid visiting? So it seems like a few people have chosen downtown. So without knowing more about those choices, it's hard to guess why those dots are there. Yep, and then, so here, this looks to me like Mallet Drive and the Highway Bridge Project, which hopefully is a short-lived issue that's a challenging bridge to cross right now. And then we'll have some great opportunities with the completion of those bridges for increased connectivity from downtown across, with nice, safe, and wide pedestrian pathways going out of town. So hopefully those dots, if we were to do this again in 3 years, would not be there. But understood that maybe that's not the most popular place to hang out right now. And then I think this one, for me personally, is the most interesting, is seeing that a lot of people have put dots around the Shaw's Plaza and the exit 20 interchange, which again, that could be related to the highway project, but I think that we as a community, there's a lot of opportunity in that area for potential growth. It's walkable to downtown. There are a lot of businesses there. There are some great businesses there. And I think, seeing that some people avoid that, maybe that's a good spot to work on and get increased connectivity to downtown and try to target that area for some growth. And I think the exit 22 is about a year behind exit 20, and I think exit 20 is
Autumn of 20. Update on both bridges, at least according to Earl Gibson, is, although he doesn't believe this, DOT has told him autumn of 2025. For both.
Wow. Okay, I had heard that one of them was 25 and the other was 26, but I don't actually know, so go find better information at the DOT website. I do know that they have a little page there where you can follow along with the bridge progress. So,
Great.
All right.
Thank you, Sam, and all the planning board members for reporting out, and thanks for everybody who made it through the entire workshop. We appreciate your attendance and your participation in future Freeport. As we said, if you haven't taken the vision survey, please log online to futurefreeport.com or grab a paper survey here tonight or at the town hall to provide your input. And we'll see you in the fall. We're going to have a housing workshop in September, environment focus workshop in October, and then looking towards the future, future land use in November. So thanks everybody for coming, and safe travels home.